what is really important here, especially when it comes to care, is that people continue to have choice and control as much as possible. That's really important to them. And then, of course, caregiving is so much more than just practical tasks. It's also about human relationships. It's about, having meaningful communication with each other. It's about getting a hug when you need it, right? And this is, I believe, at the core of what it means to be human. And I don't think that AI can change anything about that. Well, thanks so much for having me. My name is Caroline Green. I'm the Director of Research at the Institute for Ethics in AI at the University of Oxford. I have a background in human rights law and then in gerontology, so I'm really interested in how AI can support older people. And I'm interested in AI and human rights and democracy more widely. At the Institute for Ethics in AI, I lead the Accelerator Fellowship Programme, which is a 5-year program with the vision and mission to make an impactful contribution to the world of AI ethics by bringing in different voices, people from different sectors, so not just academic disciplines, but people from technology, civil society, and so on, to work together on AI ethics-related topics.
So is that how you got in touch with Dr. Joy?
Yeah, so I got in touch with Dr. Joy because of her just incredible work that she's doing, which is making such an impact in the world. And we got in touch because we really wanted her to be part of our inaugural cohort of fellows with her work, looking at algorithmic biases and the kind of work and collaborations we need in order to address those. And what we also really love about her way of working is the artistic side to it. And we've already seen that in her and our previous events, where she then brings in her poetry to wrap up the events, which is such a powerful way of, looking at AI ethics from a completely different artistic lens.
Yeah, we talk a lot about at the Algorithmic Justice League, AI harms and how that affects people, and what should they be looking out for specifically? Because everyone talks about the benefits of AI, but in your world, what are some of the AI harms people should be looking out for, and how are they evolving as we speak?
So when we speak of my world, so my research at the moment really focuses on AI in the field of caregiving, and specifically in the field of care for older people or people who are living with disabilities who need support with the activities of daily living every day. So what we're seeing here is that, yes, first of all, there is actually a lot of excitement around how AI can support people to live a life of dignity, of independence, and so on at home. They're using AI systems, for example, to help them with reminders of everyday tasks and so on. And this has had a really positive effect on people. But yes, we are also seeing risks and also harms that are often quite hidden. And why are they hidden? Because they're happening in people's own homes, and sometimes, or in care homes, for example. So, they're quite closed. People might not even realize that they're happening. So I think that is a problem by itself, is how are we actually going to learn of people's everyday experiences with AI systems, right? So that's one of the first big topics and issues I'm really interested in. So what we're finding is that, for example, we might have a voice-activated system that might not work as well for people who are living with cognitive impairments like dementia or so, because they may speak differently. So the system can't pick up their voice as well, and is therefore not working for them, right? So they're technology-based issues, but then we're also seeing context-based issues. So, for example, if somebody has fallen or has a specific need of support, they might use their voice-activated AI system to help them in one way or another. But if they then can't get access to actually someone who comes in emergency service to help them with their acute health issue, there's a problem here. So these are some of the issues we are already seeing. I think other potential risks and harms are more policy-based, namely that there is a huge excitement on the side of the government to use AI systems as a response to staff shortages in care services. But we don't yet have evidence that AI systems can really help and support in a really effective way those very human and relational care tasks, right? But we are already seeing some local authorities, some government agencies wanting to reduce the number of staff in care services. And so we'll have to see how that plans out. But, I think there's a lot of unknowns, and we need to have much more insight into everyday life, how people who are using care services, people who are providing care, how they're actually experiencing AI in their everyday lives.
Are there any research studies that are being done currently on that for care?
Yes, so actually I am co-leading a cross-sector collaboration, so meaning people from across the care community, and that includes tech providers who are building technology for the care sector, as well as government policy, care providers, care workers, people who are using care services. Together, we are working on the issue of what the responsible use of AI in care actually looks like. What does that mean in theory and in practice? And we've worked together now for over a year. We've come up with a definition for responsible AI, which is very much care-centric and focused on the rights and well-being of people who are using care services, but also people who provide care. And now it's all about actually making that meaningful in practice. So translating it into codes of practice, translating it into the regulation for the sector, and making sure that there are accountability systems in place.
Yeah, I guess it's a common topic that older adults are overlooked when developing these AI systems, but you emphasize that older adults aren't the problem. How do you think AI can be structured to address systemic ageism and resource gaps?
So when it comes to aging and AI, so I think those are two really big topics. So demographic aging from policy perspective, and the regulation of AI and so on are two huge topics, because governments are waking up to the fact that our populations are getting older. And they are also waking up to the fact that the systems, the institutions that we've got in many countries are not fit for purpose for aging populations. And so that point that I like to emphasize, that it's not the older people who are the problem, is all about the fact that we don't have the systems in place yet that will be able to address the needs of aging populations. So it's not the older people, it's the systems, it's the institutions that we need to change and that we need to make more resilient, more flexible, more intergenerational, right? So that it works for everybody. You've also just mentioned ageism as one of the points. I think ageism is one of the isms that we're experiencing globally that is often also still very much accepted in society, but it is hugely detrimental to all of us. So ageism refers to, stereotyping of people because of their age, treating them unfairly because of their age. It's something that happens from one person to another or an institution to another, but it's also something that we actually do to ourselves too. And it really influences our everyday lives, the decisions we make based on what age we are, right? So ageism is something that we need to address. And we saw some of the issues around ageism, for example, during the COVID pandemic, when, there were resource allocations and so on. And then older people in care homes, specifically in this country, were overlooked. So this by itself is a really important topic because AI and technology is taking place in context, right? It's being placed into contexts of power systems, of issues of discrimination and isms, and ageism is part of our society. So we need to fight that at the same time as building AI systems that are also aligned with, a fair society and values that are intergenerationally inclusive.
Do you have any ideas for how to fight ageism?
So, do I have ideas how to fight ageism? Yes, first of all, I think everybody needs to be on board with ageism. What I mean by that is that it's not just a topic for older people, so people 50 up or 55 up or 65 up. It's an intergenerational issue, but we already need to start with children and then younger people. We need awareness of ageism, first of all, that it's happening, what it looks like. We need to have more action against ageism, that we as societies don't accept it anymore, and that we want to change it across, wherever it is, marketing and so on, jobs, employment. We need to have new solutions to it, because there are some issues around resource allocations and so on between older people, younger generations and so on. And importantly, I think we need these dialogues between younger people and older people. We need to understand how we can enrich each other's lives and therefore build more inclusive societies.
What are some bold steps you think that are needed to center human rights in the future development of AI for health and social care?
I think the bold steps we need in order to center human rights in the future of AI in health and social care is leaders, institutions such as the National Health Service and the government really making that their priority. And I'm saying that that's a bold step for them because they're also looking at how they can make services more effective, how they can reallocate money and so on. So that's where their focus is at the moment. So putting their attention on human rights, on these values, is a bold step for them, but I think it's a necessary one. And I think another really important bold step is to start including people more. So we're seeing a huge gap between people working on AI and working on AI ethics and so on, which is still it's an elite topic really, but AI lands in everybody's lives. So people in the community, they are already affected by it and they know, but they don't really often, so from my experience, they don't really know how to make their voice heard and acted on. So I think in health and social care, we need to have this ideal that we always work with people in the community, people who are drawing on care and providing it and so on, and just be ruthless in bringing them in when it comes to tech development, when it comes to policy development, and so on. So, be more inclusive there.
Remembering the people, I feel like that's what it's so important, right? As we're developing AI, it's like we think so much about the computers and not the actual people. Okay, so this is a bit of a leading question, but as you are working with institutions like Oxford, how do you see them contributing to a more ethical and accountable global AI agenda? Yeah, and I mean, you've touched on it a little bit already, but do you think that they're being ambitious enough in defining a rights-based approach to AI in the UK?
So I think that institutions, universities, and specifically Oxford have got various roles to play. First of all, from a research point of view, I think research, evidence generation, new theoretical approaches to AI ethics is really important. And being the academic institution that it is, this is where it should be happening, right? That really high quality academic work. And that, to me, necessarily also includes ways of integrating the voices of people who are not heard. Through research methodologies, through approaches of research. So first of all that. Secondly, it has a role to play in educating future leaders. And here it's not just about educating them on what's already out there, different AI ethics approaches and so on, but it's ensuring that they become responsible leaders themselves who are able to assess and evaluate potential risks, their own actions, and then to translate that into their work. I think that's the second role of the university. And then thirdly, and I can see that is happening here at Oxford University, is to open up for public engagement, to not make this continue to be an institution that's very elitist, that has their doors closed and shut to most people who are not studying or working here, but to really open up doors for people to come in, to engage, to be part of this community. And for AI ethics, that's absolutely at the core of what we would stand for at the Institute for Ethics in AI as well, is that public engagement point.
How do you think AI will affect our futures? And I guess you can talk specifically about your specialty.
Yes. So if I think about how AI is going to affect the future of health and social care, I think it will revolutionize in one way, the way that care is offered and healthcare is provided, right? We're already seeing systems in healthcare that are really revolutionizing cancer detection and treatment and so on, for example, right? And there's so much potential here in AI for making healthcare systems better. And in care systems, so, aged care facilities, for example, people living in their own homes, I think we'll see more and more systems. They'll be able to support people in their own homes, in their everyday lives. But I think what is really important here, especially when it comes to care, is that people continue to have choice and control as much as possible. That's really important to them. And then, of course, caregiving is so much more than just practical tasks. It's also about human relationships. It's about, having meaningful communication with each other. It's about getting a hug when you need it, right? And this is, I believe, at the core of what it means to be human. And I don't think that AI can change anything about that. What it might do is that people become less connected, but I don't think that that's a good thing. It's not something that we would want. I think we need to continue to ensure that people have meaningful human connection, specifically when it comes to care.
Any final words about your work, about AI harms, about being here? Any final words for you?
So the final words is that I'm absolutely thrilled that Dr. Joy and that you are here with us today, that we get to see the coded bias, that we're coming together as a global community of people, and that you in this film are bringing different voices together. I think that that's the future of AI ethics too, is that we, from a global point of view, we come together and we pull on the same string, and that gives me a lot of hope for the future.